Welcome to UUAA, First Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Ann Arbor. We have been at work, listening patiently for love's call to reason and action. We've been working to follow without hesitation for over 150 years. In response to the blessing of life, we are harnessing the force of collective action to grace the world with decent, caring stewardship of the space and time we share with each other, our ancestors, and our generations approaching. We're trying to make a difference to the world as it makes the difference of existence to us. We're taking this seriously and with joy, and we welcome you most heartily for the next part of our community's journey. The togetherness we once took as obvious and unending now returns to us on delicately and part at a time, slowly enough to notice. Today's gift is the opportunity to appreciate the gift of our togetherness forming not only by common purpose, but shared time. That's right. If you're joining us at 11:30 on Sunday morning, we are sharing the same rainy morning or the same sky. If this were a company, I'd ask your forbearance as we learn into this new way together. But this is community. I'm asking first for your love, support, engagement, and good-hearted conversation as we take this experiment to heart. In our faith, we build our time together. Help us build worship that transforms us all to transform our world. Say it with me. We light this chalice for the light of truth. We light this chalice for the warmth of love. We light this chalice for the energy of action. We light this chalice for the harmony of peace. We're joined together not by common belief, but by an agreement to be together in love and community. This is a covenant we share with each other, and I invite you, whether it's your first time or not, to join me. The spirit of this church is love, and service is its law. This is our covenant with each other, to dwell together in peace, to search for truth in love, and to help one another. May it ever be so.
Good morning. I'm Janine LaPrade, and I've been a member of the UUAA for almost 4 years. My husband, David Dickinson, and I started coming to services in the winter of 2016-17, when we both felt a strong need to be rooted in a spiritual community, but the ones we were raised in didn't quite fit. In my 30s and 40s, I became clear that I wanted to be part of a community that helped nourish and sustain my commitment to care for myself, others, and the planet. Who knew that Unitarian Universalism, UUAA, and the many lay-led groups in the congregation might become that community? As David and I reflected on including UUAA in our charitable giving priorities this year, two themes came to mind. First, the energy and inspiration we draw from this community. We both deeply appreciate having a place and people to connect with every week for grounding, nourishment, and inspiration to go out and do the work we do in the world. We draw energy from the connections we have made in Sunday services and social hours, and throughout the week in this community. Second, we believe the social justice work of the congregation can create both impact and community. We are excited that a common thread for engaging in this community is reflected among the UUAA Vision 2050 goals: a commitment to climate action, racial and environmental justice, and radical welcome of diverse seekers. As a co-leader of the climate action team here at UUAA, I know many of us want to reduce our carbon footprints and take collective action on climate and environmental justice issues. By being in and building community together, committing our time, our talent, and our treasure, we can do this. If you have not made your 2021 pledge yet, please join David and me in supporting UUAA with part of your financial contributions to keep the foundation strong and moving forward, so together we can build the vision on the road to 2050. Thank you.
Good morning. Please join me in singing. For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. Join me. For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. We are our grandmother's prayers, and we are our grandfather's dreamings. We are the breath of our ancestors. We are the Spirit of God. We are mothers of courage and fathers of time. We are daughters of dust and the sons of great visions. We are sisters of mercy and brothers of love. We are lovers of life and the builders of nations. We are seekers of truth and keepers of faith. We are makers of peace and the wisdom of ages. We are a grandmother's prayers, and we are our grandfather's dreams. We are the breath of our ancestors. We are the Spirit of God. For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. We are our grandmother's prayers, and we are our grandfather's dreamings. We are the breath of our ancestors. We are the Spirit of God. For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are.
Good morning. I'm the Reverend Manish Mishra-Marzetti. What a privilege and joy it is to be greeting you today live. If you haven't already picked up on it, your leadership team this Sunday is coming to you live streamed. And I want to thank Kristin for just such a beautiful rendition of a hymn that is both familiar and very moving. For each child that's born, a morning star rises. A song that connects our past and our present to our future, the hope and possibility of each child mirrored in the cycles and the rhythms of the universe, the morning star heralding that possibility. Such beautiful imagery for us to hold together this day. Today, November 1st, the day after All Hallows Eve, is in some traditions honored and known by different names, sometimes All Souls Day, All Saints Day, but in these variety of traditions, it's a way in which we can honor our ancestors, those that have predeceased us, those who we have loved and cared for and have been important in our lives. We'll be doing some of that this morning, and in particular, I've also been personally reflecting on the rhythms of time, how past and present and future are joined together in that experience of people and places and things that we have found meaningful. As we move through this time together today, I want to give you just a little bit of an overview. I'm going to invite you to join me in an experience of honoring and calling forth the names of those folks who have predeceased us, those whom we have loved. And it may even be more than people. It may be beings, other animals, pets that we have loved, others, beings, living entities that we have cared for. From that calling forth, I will offer a reading, and then we'll have some time for shared spiritual practice, some time for shared reflection, and then we'll close out our time together today. If you would, I'd invite you to take a minute to just recall, bring into your heart, bring into your consciousness those individuals or beings that are no longer physically with us, but whom have mattered, who've made a real difference in our lives through their presence, through their love, through their caring. In your YouTube feed of this service, there is a chat box function. You may need to be signed into YouTube in order to participate in this next activity. And if you're able to do that, I invite you to. I'm going to invite you in just a second or two to enter into the chat box the names, be they of people or pets, other things that have been loved and held dearly by us that are no longer with us, to enter that into the chat box. And if you are not able to do so on YouTube because you're not logged in or don't have that ability, I'd invite you to write it down next to you on a piece of paper or in a notebook. Those individuals, beings, places, things that have been loved, that are no longer with you. As we do so, there'll be some instrumental music to just hold that time together for us. And I invite us now to enter that time. There may be more names that you wish to continue entering as our time continues. Please know that you may do so. I'd like to share with you a reading this morning. It's actually a piece of original poetry that I wrote. I've been in deep reflection on this theme of the people and places, beings, things we have loved that have been dear to us, things, beings, individuals that are no longer with us, and how that connects in the present, how our past connects to the present and feeds into the future that we are becoming a part of. I had the privilege of spending a couple of short days in my hometown of Pittsburgh recently. And those of you who attended our water communion in September, you may recall the image that we shared with you then of the center point of the downtown of my hometown, where three rivers converge. They flow together. It's a point of confluence. I went kind of in pilgrimage to this confluence. I wanted to be in the center of that confluence, the energy of these two rivers becoming the mighty Ohio. So I invite you to bring into your mind that imagery. And as I was there, I wrote this piece of poetry entitled At the Three Rivers. Confluence, convergence, flow, past and future mingling here in the present. Memory, both malleable and fixed, experiences, places, and things that have been loved, remembered in a certain way. Nostalgia and pain, gaining endurance in the concretized remembrances of what has been. The future, forever uncertain, forever outside our control, yet looked toward with hope, with possibility, yearning for what may still be, and the recapturing of past joys, past meaningfulness. In between these, past and future, in between these, at the confluence, rests the now. Sun shining, rivers meeting, unexpected warmth, human beings doing what we have always done, enjoying the ephemeral, that which resides immediately in front of us, conversations, games, walks, nature, friendship, inherent love and joy. My heart has longed for this convergence, the simplicity, the beauty of any given moment fully experienced without fear for the future, without nostalgia for the past, or interpretation of the present through the lenses of past harm. The rivers of past and future meeting here in the present, that fleeting confluence which always yearns for unclouded presence. Thus ends our reading. What is that unclouded presence? Being fully alive to the moment that we're in, without nostalgia for the past or clinging to the pain of the past, without holding fear for future possibilities that have yet to unfold. Unclouded by those things that muddle our ability to be fully present in the moment that is now. How do we live into that? What does that look like? This is what all the ancient religious, spiritual traditions have taught by way of spiritual practice. Every spiritual practice, underneath it, is one goal, one ambition of helping us be as fully alive in the present moment as we can be. Some of you joined me in the spring during our days of physical lockdown in Michigan for Wednesday early evening meditation sessions. I'm going to invite us into a brief amount of time for shared spiritual practice. Silent meditation, silent reflection, whatever frame works for you for that. And I'll offer some brief words of entrance into a time of shared spiritual practice. First, any spiritual practice can feel either too short or too long, depending on what our inner state is on a given day. Bring your best sense of non-judgmentalness to all of that. If it is hard, it feels hard to just be present to the moment now with as much quietude as one can muster. Simply notice it. Don't judge it. Don't get angry about it. Don't get frustrated. It's information. Getting frustrated or being judgmental is the choice of what to do with that information. We don't have to, certainly not with spiritual practice. One can notice whatever arises, including feelings of, oh, I wish I had double the amount of time to rest in the quietude, or I wish it was half as short, whatever that might be. And aside from bringing our best non-judgmental self to any practice, simply noticing what arises, many people turn away from meditation because of the idea that the goal is to have some kind of blank state of mind. One of my teachers is very fond of saying that only happens when you've died. So long as we're alive, the brain is active, thoughts occur. It is natural, even as we seek stillness and quietude, that thoughts will occur. In stilling ourselves, we try not to follow our thoughts. We try not for them to not become a chain of causal thinking that we are following down some tracks, a train that we have jumped onto and are allowing it to take us wherever it wants. We notice thoughts, we notice thinking that arises, and we gently let it go. We bring non-judgmentalness, we bring gentle noticing. For some of us, having a focal question can be helpful. If not, enjoy the quietude. Step into it as fully and as deeply and as well as you can. For those who would find a focal question helpful, I'd invite you, the names that came up of individuals and beings that we have loved and cared for, what did they bequeath you? What is the inheritance, the wisdom that they have left you? I would invite you to step into that focal question with as much quietude and stillness as you can. We'll take a length of time now to sit in quietude. Don't worry about how long that time is. I'll keep track of it for us. There will be some bells that chime to lead us into that time, and then some bells that bring us out of it. If you would now, join me in finding a place of stillness in your heart. and invite us to rejoin one another as we enter a time of reflection, shared reflection. And as we do so, I'm holding in my heart today ancestors, beloveds, such as my mentor, Mary Harrington, mother of Reverend Sam Teitel in Memphis, who many of you know. My sibling in faith, Elandria Williams, who died about a month ago. My father-in-law, Leo Marzetti. My grandparents, beloved pets, Tigger and Luke, and others. You may be holding many such beloveds in your heart as well today. And as I do so, and as you do so, I invite us into some shared reflection, as I alluded to on the topic of notions of time. What does time and our thinking about time have anything to do with death and ancestors? You might be wondering, that's a good question. Some of you are aware that while I was in seminary, I professionally taught philosophy, ethics, world religions, which was great fun. And those who teach introductory classes, such as Intro to Religion, they'll often frame the opening session of such a class by saying, you know, ancient religions came about because there was a human need to come up with an answer to a profound question that mattered to us, an answer that we didn't necessarily have. What happens when we die? And so people 3,000, 4,000 years ago came up with systems of philosophy, theology, to answer that question potentially, among others. Now, the interesting thing is that there's no way to even come up with hypothetical responses to what happens when we die without answering other questions. And one of those is the nature of time. Think for a moment around how you as a human being, just one individual, how you routinely experience time. On one hand, I, as one person among us, I'm very much aware of my own aging process. With each additional month and year, there's a linear progression. I am getting older, even if I don't wish it. My cognitive and physical faculties are changing along with that, and I'm very aware of that. Right? Through my own lived experience, I'm aware of a linear progression of time in which changes are irrevocably happening to me personally. That's one experience of time. Think also side by side with that about the observable and experienceable natural rhythms of the world around us. We're in the middle of fall, the autumn season. We're watching the leaves fall from the trees. We know that they will reemerge, the leaves, in the spring. The linear progression of time, my personal experience of it, also exists side by side with my personal experience of cycles, cyclicality of time. Ancient humans drew on both of these concepts, both of these experiences of time. And most notably, in the field of religion, the Abrahamic religions and the Eastern religions came up with very different fundamental conceptions of time and how that links into theology and philosophy. The Abrahamic religions, and what we mean by Abrahamic is Jewish, Christian, and Islam, drawing very strongly, a strong emphasis on the linear experience of time, the linear progression of time. In the Eastern religions, Hinduism and Buddhism, not the only ones. There are also many indigenous traditions, pagan religions that draw on cycles of time as well. Look at what that means. These ancient forms of thought, 3,000, 4,000 years ago, drawing on these experiences of time, came up with answers to the question of what happens when we die. In those Abrahamic traditions, death is followed by burial. Your remains are placed in a box Why? Because the remains must be kept together for a future resurrection. All of that, a linear progression, right? In Eastern thought, a very different approach. You die, you're cremated. Cremains are typically returned to the earth, to the planet that we come from, ashes to ashes, so to speak. Why? Because there are cycles of life and death and rebirth. We have emerged from the earth, we return to it. Some new life emerges. Concepts of reincarnation, whether it is coming back as a plant or another animal. The plant could feed an animal. The animal could feed a person. All of this interconnectedness of life, cycles of birth, death, and rebirth. So in the field of history of religion, people often start with the question of what happens when we die, but there's a question that gets answered before that, which is what's our relationship to time? And two fundamental conceptions are linear and cyclical. Now, here's the interesting thing. As I've noted, these are ancient people that came up with these observations and interpretations 3,000 to 4,000 years ago. The field of psychology tells us that we tend to place an emphasis on that information which is most readily available to us. There's an availability bias. We can personally experience the linearity of time in our aging process. We can personally experience the cycles of time and the rhythm of the world around us, the patterns of nature. And so most philosophical thinking, theological thinking draws on that. But those are not the only possibilities. Modern day science has irreconcilable notions of time. I hope we have some scientists among us. This will ring familiar and true if we do. Time as it's understood in general relativity and time as it's understood in quantum mechanics are vastly different and irreconcilable. And yet there must be some science still to be discovered that would bridge divergent understandings of physics, including the reality and nature of time. We just don't know what those are yet. But what we understand today points to the possibility, in fact, the likelihood, that our observable experience is probably not the full scope of scientific reality. There is probably more. And so it's possible, as I kind of conceptualize this for myself, that time may actually be linear. It may also be cyclical. Certainly we experience both of those things in parallel at the same time. It may even be multidirectional, which we don't yet fully understand or have a framework for, but something has to link divergent understandings of quantum and general relativity and their understandings of time. There must be something more. For me, let's bring this forward now, right? These understandings of time also impact how we grieve and how we relate to those who have predeceased us. In that linearity, there is often an assumption of absolute finality at the moment of death. Nothing at all continues. And in those understandings, the grieving process is really hard. People grieve very strongly because of that assumption or that belief that they're bringing to the experience of death, that the life that was known is completely done and over with. Hence, some take solace in notions of resurrection. There's yet more in the linear progression. The linear progression has more that will still occur, yet to happen. We can find also some sense of solace in the cycles of time, the rhythms of nature. I'm a part of this living cosmos. The cells in my body have come from this planet. They'll return to this planet, giving life yet to more possibility that may emerge. And yet there can also be this multi-directionality that we don't yet understand, that may still be waiting for discovery. The past doesn't merely end. It continues on in us, at a minimum in memory, more than memory, energetically. Think of the words I drew on in the poem that you heard, nostalgia and pain. past experiences, people that have been in our lives, beings that have been in our lives. It's not all just joy and beautiful memories. There are also harder experiences that we've had. These beautiful experiences and harder experiences, we hold energy related to them. That energy, we can feel it. If we bring alive certain experiences, our blood will race inside us, right? Memory, experience, past, has a living valence within us. It's not calcified. It's not a never-changing monument to what has been. There's a living relationship with all that has been in the present moment, here with us today. We can think of it as the enduring qualities of memory, of energy, of love, whatever language frame resonates with you. In that living, breathing relationship, which we can think of as multi-directional, that is very much present in the now, it's up to each of us to bring forth into the present the wisdom. And a way to think of the wisdom is the inheritance. It's that which the people, the beings we have loved have bequeathed us. We bring forth their wisdom, their inheritance to us in the present. That is yours. That is mine, unequivocally to embody and to honor. And we have that opportunity to do so on a day like today, known in some traditions as All Souls or on All Saints. We pause to take a moment to think of all of those who have touched us profoundly. And the beauty, the positive impacts of those encounters and relationships, which include learning. Even at times when relationships have been difficult or painful, there's often important growth and learning that emerges for us. That's also an inheritance. That is also something that is bequeathed to us. It's ours to embody the wisdom, the lessons, that inheritance that is left to us. And it's through that embodiment that we bring alive the gifts of the past in living relationship with them in the present moment. And we don't do that by imposing, I often refer to this as our hard-won wisdom, right? Even when a memory, a relationship has been fully positive, the death is still painful. We mourn, we grieve. And in that sense, these inheritances, these experiences, this wisdom is almost always, there's an element of, it's hard won. We've had to work hard, moving through our own grief, understanding and processing pain or feelings of nostalgia, longing for the past. The wisdom that emerges on the other side, there can be a almost evangelical tendency to want to impose our hard-won wisdom on other people. That is not our Unitarian Universalist way. We are a tradition of pluralism and diversity amongst all other things. First and foremost, pluralistic belief, approaches, experiences, diversity of life experience, journeys, paths. It is not our right or our duty to impose our wisdom on others. But what we can do in understanding that it is a living tradition bequeathed to us, our inheritance, we step into it fully, bringing it alive in our life example. And truly, that's all that's needed. Because if we allow our life example to shine as brightly as it can, live into the compassion, live into the love, live into the honoring the dignity of others as fully as you are able, it will be noticed. It does not go unnoticed. Shining examples of humanity. My gosh, think of the time, the week that we're in. When we're surrounded by so many examples to the contrary. Unrepentant examples of harm and hatefulness. My friends, beloveds, trust me. Live into your wisdom. It will be noticed. And that's all that's needed. We don't need to forcefully impose it, thrust it upon others. Live into your beauty. Those who have loved you would want nothing more. They would not want you to live in a way that is aggressive or violent towards other beings. They would simply want you to illuminate the world with your living example. Julica Herman de la Fuente, she offered us last week in her sharing of her lived experience of Day of the Dead. She said, those that have preceded us made sacrifices. They made sacrifices for our well-being so that we could be here. They attempted to teach us, nurture us, guide us. The way that we honor them is we live into their sacrifices, we redeem them, we live into their sacrifices by allowing their wisdom to live on through us gently, lovingly, fully, as a shining example. Let's do our ancestors proud. It's said in the traditions of the world that this is a time when the veil is thin. Reach out with your heart, reach out with your love, talk to them if you feel called to do that. This is a time when those presences are near. Let's do them proud. The world needs nothing less of us.
Please join me in singing again and sharing your light. We are our grandmother's prayers, and we are our grandfather's dreamings. We are the breath of our ancestors. We are the Spirit of God. For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are.
Thank you, Kristin and Reverend Manish, for sharing your voices with us, your hearts with us, and helping us to connect more deeply. Friends, if this place, if this community, if this time together means something to you, then I invite you to mean something to it in the future as we continue to make now into tomorrow. Give, invest at UUAA.org/giving. Now is the time to make our tomorrows have a chance of strength and thriving in the days ahead. Until we meet again, may the ancestors bless us with an example, and may we be graceful to their names with the way we live. May the ancestors bless us with the lessons. May we see that we are as common and stunningly different as when we call them as one, the ancestors, or when we call them as one, Grandma, Thomas, Rex. May the ancestors bless us with the memories of their ordinary living and show us how they made extraordinary stuff out of even their faults and foibles. May we be clear enough to learn from their example and to see our connection to all the times past, their dreams. May we be ancestors clear ourselves, an ancestor now with the strength of our living. Be well, my friends. Peace. Join us afterward in social hour, if you would, for some time in conversation to keep the community going.